When officers arrested 22-year-old Riley Donaldson and asked for her name, she gave them an answer that sent chills through the investigation. God, not Riley, not her legal name. God. She believed she had the power to decide who lives and who dies. And on October 5th, 2025, she made that decision about her own mother. Surveillance cameras captured the black Chrysler 300 pulling into Ada Mae Simmons-Jones's driveway just before midnight. Riley stepped out, walked to the front door of her mother's Southfield, Michigan home, and 3 minutes later, 45-year-old Ada Mae was gone. The victim? A devoted realtor, grandmother, and the one person who stood between Riley's 3-year-old daughter and the foster care system. The crime? First-degree premeditated murder over a custody battle Riley had already lost. But here's the part that haunts this case. Riley didn't take her daughter with her when she fled. She left that baby behind, proving this was never about love. So what drives a woman to call herself God while destroying the only person who truly loved her child? Before we get too deep, hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and tap subscribe with the bell so you never miss the next episode. Ada Mae Simmons-Jones was a 45-year-old realtor living in Southfield, Michigan. She had built a life that many would admire: professional success, a comfortable home, and most importantly, a role that meant everything to her: raising her 3-year-old granddaughter, Price. Ada shared her home with her husband and his 77-year-old mother, creating what seemed like a stable, multi-generational household. But Ada's greatest source of joy was also her greatest source of stress: her daughter, Riley Donaldson. Riley was 22 years old, living between Ohio and Michigan. She worked at Ford Motor Company and had a 3-year-old daughter. But somewhere along the way, the state decided that Riley was not capable of caring for her own child. This wasn't about financial hardship or lack of resources. This was about Riley's own behavior and decisions that put her daughter at risk. The court granted Ada Mae full legal custody of her granddaughter. But Ada didn't just take the child and shut Riley out. She allowed Riley to visit whenever she wanted, so she could see her daughter freely. Riley had the support system that most struggling young mothers would be grateful for. But gratitude wasn't what Riley felt. It was resentment. By mid-2025, the tension between Riley and her mother had reached a breaking point. Social media became Riley's outlet, and her posts painted a picture of a young woman spiraling into darkness. In May, she wrote, "My mom says she's worried, but I'm covered in his favor." Then, in June, Riley posted something even more telling. "Do you all want my mom's number so you can ask her personally if I ever cared?" The anger was growing. The posts were getting darker. And her mother, the woman trying to hold everything together, was becoming the target. Riley's baby father, Darnell Adams, was another complication in this already messy situation. Their relationship was toxic, playing out in public on social media for everyone to see. They fought online and aired their personal business like it was entertainment. In July, Riley wrote a long, detailed message about Darnell. She accused him of multiple things, but the most important part of that post was what she said about her own mother. Riley wrote, "The only reason Darnell isn't in jail right now is because of my mother and Price. Not because he's innocent, but because I'm the only one who takes what happens to me seriously. They had the chance to do right by me, When I spoke up, when I said I'd been assaulted, I was not taken to the hospital. I was left unprotected. I don't play about me. Others do. I have documentation. I have proof. So before anybody runs to defend him or try to silence me again, please don't anger me off. I've protected people who wouldn't even flinch if it was me. That stops here. This wasn't just about custody anymore. In Riley's mind, her mother was the enemy. But through it all, Ada Mae was the one providing stability for that little girl, making sure she had a home, love, and safety. In August 2025, Riley took her daughter to Ohio without permission. This wasn't discussed with her mother, who had primary custody. Riley just took the child and left. Ada Mae was terrified. She called the police and reported her granddaughter missing, explaining that Riley had some serious issues and had stolen her car. The child was found safely in Ohio, and the car was recovered. When Riley was brought back to Michigan, Ada didn't press charges. She could have. She had every right to. But instead, she petitioned for Riley to undergo a mental health evaluation. Even after everything, Ada was still trying to help her daughter. October 5th, 2025, started like any other day. But by the time the sun set, Riley Donaldson had made a decision that would destroy multiple lives forever. That evening, Riley bought a 2017 Chrysler 300 from a private seller. She wasn't buying a car to start fresh. She was preparing for murder. Back in Southfield, Ada Mae was home with her mother-in-law and her granddaughter. It was a normal Sunday night. She had no idea that her own daughter was driving north from Ohio, planning to destroy everything she had built. Just before midnight, that black Chrysler 300 pulled into Ada's driveway. Riley stepped out of the car, carried her purse, and walked toward the front door of her mother's home. The confrontation happened quickly. In 3 minutes, she was driving out. The 77-year-old mother-in-law heard disturbing sounds. Then she heard someone running toward the front door. The elderly woman didn't call 911 directly. She called her son, Ada's husband. He's the one who contacted the police. By the time emergency responders arrived at 11:50 p.m., Ada Mae Simmons-Jones was gone.
According to the chief of police, that there was a 3-year-old child that was inside the home at the time of the shooting. That child did not see anything, but sadly, that child did hear the commotion. From what we understand, that child is safe and is now staying with a family member while police try and figure out or try to track down who pulled the trigger overnight. So investigators and officers, they were called out to the 18,000 block of Brainbridge near 13 Mile and Southfield Road just before midnight after receiving a call from someone concerned about the noises that they were hearing. No one else inside the home, including that 3-year-old child, were injured in what police are describing as a domestic situation. Now, right now, investigators are continuing to interview those who knew the victim and the suspected shooter. They're also looking over home security video given to them by neighbors in hopes of getting a better idea as to where the suspect went following this deadly overnight encounter.
In Riley's rush to escape, she left her purse behind. That purse contained her identification cards, personal items, and everything the police would need to identify her immediately. Riley drove straight to Ohio and stayed in the Toledo area for about 2 hours. After those 2 hours in Ohio, she drove back to Michigan. Why? Maybe she was trying to establish an alibi. Maybe she thought the distance would protect her. But what Riley didn't know was that technology would be her downfall. Back in Southfield, detectives had collected surveillance footage from neighborhood cameras that showed the Chrysler 300 arriving and leaving. They had the purse with Riley's identification and witness testimony from the 77-year-old woman who was in that house when everything happened. They also had phone records that placed Riley's phone at Ada Mae's house during the exact time of the incident.
The investigation also revealed through phone records that our suspect was at the home during the time of the shooting. And that's why I mentioned the importance of using technology in these investigations.
Investigators began tracking Riley's movements. The evidence was overwhelming. This wasn't a mystery. This was a hunt. A day later, on October 6th, Riley was spotted in Detroit. Southfield detectives, working with the Oakland County Auto Theft Task Force and their Tactical Crime Suppression Unit, located the black Chrysler 300 in the area of Finkel and St. Mary's. They followed the vehicle to a CVS at 7 Mile and Greenfield. Riley had backed the car into a parking spot in front of the store and was in the front passenger seat. When officers approached the vehicle, Riley was taken into custody without incident.
Hands up! Hands up! Hands. It's all right. Hands high. Step here, face away, brother, face away. On the ground! All the way down. On the ground! Watch that right. There might be someone in that seat. I can't stop. There's everybody else on that seat. All right, hold it up. That's right. Stomach, arms out. I got those. I stole yours. Yeah, look there. That's good. You call it what? Top down that sir. My head front. You can get out. You got it.
There were 3 men in the car with her, but investigators determined these men had nothing to do with the incident. When officers asked for her name, Riley gave a very unusual answer. She replied, God.
And you see it in the video. When she's arrested, she refers to herself, when the officers asked her name, refers to herself as God. Also, when our detectives brought her to the station and began to interview or attempt to interview her, she immediately asked for a lawyer. So she's very conscious of the legal system. She's very conscious of calling herself God, because you all know when individuals do that declaration, they're letting us know that they decide who lives and who dies.
In her mind, she was a deity. She had the power. She had the control. But when officers informed Riley that she was being arrested, she simply said, okay. No shock, no denial, no remorse. Southfield Police Chief Elvin Barron held a press conference to explain the investigation.
I know after this incident occurred, the media was calling, members of the community was calling, because anytime there's a homicide, it does generate a lot of concern in our neighborhood. I did have an opportunity to speak to the husband of the deceased. I spoke to him yesterday. I didn't want to have a press conference and not have had conversation with him to advise him on the nature of the investigation and the press conference. Certainly want to send our condolences to the family. In fact, we do have friends and family who've joined us here in the audience today to hear the sequence of events and our investigation. I want to remind everybody that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. In fact, the Southfield Police Department recently completed a Domestic Violence Awareness Walk. I also spoke at the West Bloomfield Henry Ford Silent Witness ceremony that they partner with Haven every year. And one thing that stands out about this month, oftentimes we spend a lot of time when we have discussions about domestic violence centering on intimate partner violence. But another aspect of domestic violence that we're going to have to pay more attention to is family violence. We've seen son kill father. We've seen brother kill sister. And in this case, unfortunately, daughter kills the mother. So family violence is worthy of those conversations and resources as well.
Chief Barron went into detail about the timeline of events.
So this incident began on Sunday, October 5th at approximately 11:40 p.m. Southfield police officers were dispatched to the 18,000 block of Bainbridge Drive on the report of a shooting that just occurred. Southfield police and fire arrived on scene and immediately began life-saving measures on an unresponsive female. Despite those efforts by first responders, the victim was pronounced deceased at the scene. While rendering first aid, first responders observed several spent casings and observed the victim with a gunshot wound to the chest, back, and a graze wound to her head. The victim was identified as 45-year-old Southfield resident Ada Mae Simmons-Jones. Southfield officers determined that the 77-year-old female and a 3-year-old child were present in the home at the time the shooting occurred. However, both were unharmed. The 77-year-old female is a resident of the home, and she's the victim's mother-in-law, who does have some physical health challenges. She heard approximately 3 to 4 gunshots and then heard someone run outside the front door. Our officers responded to the scene and began collecting evidence, surveillance video, and our detectives really worked tirelessly on this case.
The surveillance video told the story.
Neighborhood surveillance video captured a dark-colored Chrysler 300 drive down Bainbridge and pull into the driveway where the shooting occurred. The suspect, later identified as Donaldson, exits the driver's side of the vehicle and approaches the front door of the residence. Minutes later, Donaldson is seen exiting the residence into the front driver's seat of the Chrysler 300 and quickly speed away from the crime scene. You're going to see that later on when I show that video. However, in a hurry to flee from the scene, our suspect left her purse behind, which contained identifying items. Our suspect, and I'm going to remind you, the daughter of our victim, is a resident of Cincinnati, Ohio, and does not reside at that home. We believe that the gun was concealed inside of that purse as she entered that home.
Chief Barron made it clear this was premeditated.
Our investigation also determined that Donaldson purchased a 2017 Chrysler 300 from a private seller on October 5th of this year. And I bring that up because when you look at the video is grainy, but you can still see the silhouette of the Chrysler 300 if you know your vehicles. Our detectives continued using technology to strengthen our case, and immediately following the shooting, she fled to Ohio, just outside of Toledo, in the area of Lake Township and Pittsburgh Township, where she remained in that area for approximately 2 hours and then drove to the city of Detroit. And I'm going to pause here. So I'm going to tell you, this investigation revealed that this homicide, this murder, was premeditated. And immediately following the shooting, as I stated in my remarks, she fled to Ohio. And we did contact both those cities' police departments because she was there for about 2 hours. We believe that somewhere between the time of the shooting and in her path towards Ohio, we believe she may have discarded that weapon. So we did ask those agencies to search the general area. However, they were not able to locate the gun.
The next day, the hunt continued.
On Monday, October 6th, at approximately 1:30 p.m., Southfield detectives and detectives from the Oakland County RPF Task Force and our Southfield Tactical Crime Suppression Unit located the black Chrysler 300 occupied by our suspect in the area of Finkel and St. Mary's in the city of Detroit. Detectives set up surveillance and followed the vehicle to a CVS at the 7 Mile location in the area of Greenfield in the city of Detroit. The Chrysler 300 was backed into a parking spot in front of the store, and 3 males were also in the car with Donaldson. The investigation revealed that these three men did not have anything to do with the homicide. Detectives observed our suspect Donaldson as a front seat passenger in the front seat of the Chrysler 300. Responding officers initiated a traffic stop of the vehicle, and Donaldson was taken into custody without incident.
But the story didn't start on October 5th. The conflict had been building for months.
I also want to put some context to this, because oftentimes when you have a homicide, particularly you talk about a daughter killing her mother, there must have been some type of conflict. So what we determined is that on Friday, August 22nd of this year, right around 4:30 p.m., Southfield officers were dispatched to the same home on a report of a missing child. The reporting party was our deceased, Miss Ada Mae Simmons-Jones, where she contacted Southfield Dispatch and stated that her daughter, our suspect, Riley Donaldson, had taken her granddaughter, whom Mrs. Simmons-Jones has legal guardianship over the 3-year-old child. And yes, that's the child that was at the home at the time of the shooting. She further advised dispatch that our suspect suffered from mental illness and that she stole her vehicle and took the 3-year-old child and the family dog. The victim's vehicle, which was a Kia Sedona, that was taken by a suspect, was recovered by the Swanson Police Department in Toledo, Ohio, along with the 3-year-old child who was unharmed. However, the dog was never recovered. On Wednesday, August 27th of the same year, the victim, Ms. Jones, she did not wish to pursue criminal charges for the theft of the vehicle or for the taking of the grandchild. And probably because, as you know, we love our children and didn't necessarily want to prosecute her daughter. However, Ms. Jones did petition for her daughter to be hospitalized, and Southfield police officers did take her into custody and then transfer her to Common Ground for a mental health evaluation.
Riley had no criminal history, but the evidence was undeniable.
When you look at the criminal history of our suspect, she does not have a criminal history, but with our evidence and our investigation, the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office did authorize charges for Riley Donaldson. Again, she's 22 years old. She's a resident of Cincinnati, Ohio. And count 1, homicide, murder, first degree, premeditated. Count 2, weapons, felony firearm. She was given no bond, and her next court date is scheduled for October 27th of this year at 9:45 a.m. Before Judge Johnson.
Chief Barron addressed the elephant in the room: mental health versus accountability.
And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time, talking about the fact that, again, this was premeditated. The prosecutor's office agreed, issued those charges, and I know your next question will surround me regarding mental health and how do you hold individuals accountable. So in my 28 years of policing, I've seen severe mental illness where that person doesn't understand what they're doing. When I'll tell you, this isn't it. And when you look at our contacts with our suspect, and you see it in the video, when she's arrested, she refers to herself, when the officers asked her name, refers to herself as God. Also, when our detectives brought her to the station and began to interview or attempt to interview her, she immediately asked for a lawyer. So she's very conscious of the legal system. She's very conscious of calling herself God, because you all know when individuals do that declaration, they're letting us know that they decide who lives and who dies. And so, again, we're not going to allow anyone to use mental health as escape. There's a process for that where a judge will decide whether a person is deemed fit to stand trial for mental illness through a process. But again, our evidence with the way the shooting took place at 11:40 at night, the way you're going to see this vehicle hurry up and escape the crime scene, the fleeing to Ohio to remove yourself from the state of Michigan, particularly Southfield, Michigan, in a close proximity of the time of the shooting, so that you could say that you were in Ohio, not knowing that technology is going to place you at the home at the time of the shooting, not knowing that technology is going to allow us as a police department to track your movements from the crime scene all the way to Ohio.
News outlets covered the story extensively.
Well, a 22-year-old woman who is under arrest is charged with first-degree premeditated murder in the shooting of her own mother.
And the crime happened earlier this month at a home in Southfield. Fox News' Ingrid Kelly has the details tonight.
Southfield police detailing a shocking and deadly case of violence that happened in this house behind me on October 5th. Around 11:40 p.m., police responded to this home on Bainbridge Drive on reports of shots fired. Security camera video shows this woman, 22-year-old Riley Donaldson, out of Ohio, allegedly arriving to the home a short time before those 911 calls were made. The investigation revealed this is the home of Donaldson's mother, 45-year-old Ada Mae Simmons-Jones, who Donaldson allegedly fatally shot several times before you see her quickly exiting the home and driving away, leaving her purse behind. Inside the home, an elderly relative and a 3-year-old girl who police say is Donaldson's daughter. However, Simmons-Jones had legal custody of her grandchild. After the alleged shooting, Donaldson went to Ohio for a couple of hours before driving to Detroit, where police say she was taken into custody on October 6.
The investigation painted a picture of calculation, not confusion.
Detectives set up surveillance and followed the vehicle to a CVS at the 7 Mile location in the area of Greenfield in the city of Detroit. The Chrysler 300 was backed into a parking spot in front of the store. Detectives observed our suspect Donaldson as a front seat passenger in the front seat of the Chrysler 300. Responding officers initiated a traffic stop of the vehicle, and Donaldson was taken into custody without incident.
Donaldson was arraigned and is being held without bond. Police believe child custody may be the root of this tragedy. Back in August of this year, Donaldson took her now deceased mother's vehicle and her child. Both child and vehicle were recovered in Ohio, but Simmons-Jones decided not to press charges, asking that her daughter be hospitalized instead. Family members showed up to Tuesday's press conference but declined to comment. And as police continue their investigation, they tell us that the child is now in custody of her grandfather.
Looking back at Riley's social media posts, the warning signs were all there. Her May post dismissing her mother's concerns. Her June post publicly challenging anyone who questioned her care for her daughter. And her July post blaming her mother for failing to protect her. Each post showed a woman building resentment, creating justification, and preparing for conflict. On October 10th, 2025, Riley Donaldson was formally charged with first-degree premeditated murder and felony firearm possession. In Michigan, that means life in prison without parole if convicted. A once tight family now torn apart. A mother gone, a daughter behind bars, and a little girl who would grow up with neither. What drives a woman to decide to harm her own mother over custody issues? Ada Mae had given Riley everything most struggling mothers dream of: help with child care, financial support, unlimited access to her daughter, and a stable environment for her child to grow up in. She chose to destroy her own family, abandon her own child, and throw away her own future. All because she couldn't accept help from the person who loved her most. But the question that haunts everyone who hears this story remains. If Riley really wanted her daughter back, why did she leave her behind? And what kind of love calls itself God while destroying everything? Remember, danger can wear a familiar face. Stay aware, look out for others, and reach out if you need help. See you in the next case. Thanks for watching.